And anything, is there anything the lawyers want to address before we start with opening statements?
I believe there were some motions in limine. I don't think that those will take very long. And then I would just like to kind of understand the court's position, if any, on jury instructions. I know sometimes if bench trials, courts would like them submitted as legal instructions just so that we all understand the same framework. I would prefer to use them in closing, so if it's possible for us to do them ahead of time, whether that's at the close of case in chief or before, either's fine with the state.
And Your Honor, the motions that Ms. Burgess is referring to is a motion in limine to exclude improper vouching and a motion to prohibit the state from describing anyone as a victim before the conclusion of the case.
And I think the fact that this is a bench trial, I don't think those really make that much of a difference, but there can't be improper vouching. And because there's a presumption of innocence, there's not a victim and it's an alleged victim. I understand that oftentimes, people slip up and just refer to the person as a victim. Because we don't have the jury here, I don't think that makes much of a difference. But I will do my best to refer to the person as the alleged victim as opposed to the victim. And I'd ask that the lawyers and the witnesses do the same thing.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything else before we go with opening statements?
Just the question about jury instructions, Your Honor.
And nothing from the defense?
And what's the defense? Obviously we don't have to go through all the jury instructions, but what are the issues about the jury instructions? Is there something in particular that is problematic in this case?
No, I don't believe so, Your Honor. They're not always done when it's a bench trial. I've had them done. We recently had a trial where we went through them and discussed them and kind of worked the case law into them, just as the legal instructions for the court making their decision, specifically also because both sides reference them during closings. If the court does not prefer them, I'm okay with that. Also, I just want to kind of understand the landscape of what we're doing.
I don't need there to be jury instructions. Oftentimes in the criminal cases, there aren't huge disputes. There's a lot more on the civil side. If there's something in particular that's particularly problematic, or there's a dispute between the parties, it'd be helpful to address that and raise that now and resolve that before you even start with opening statements, so you know what the rulings are going to be. But
Your Honor, I don't believe I've glanced at the intent, which is usually the one that's kind of crafted by the parties, and I think that our instructions are almost identical in that. I think, let me just glance quickly at defense's robbery in the third-degree instruction. I think if that is also identical, I see no problem as long as the court is okay with me referencing jury instructions during closing on some slides. I am perfectly happy to just move forward.
that's completely fine with me.
And the defense will defer to the court on that issue.
All right, so anything else before opening statement?
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
All right, let's proceed with opening statement, and you could probably give a shorter opening statement than you would if this was a jury trial, but I'll defer to you about what you want to do. So, Ms. Burgess?
Morning, Your Honor. John Hacker was irate. On the morning of May 7th, 2019, Mr. Andy Ngo was at the gym, working out and getting ready to leave, when somebody dumped water on his head from a floor above him. Mr. Ngo went up to see who that person was, and when he went up there, he saw Mr. Hacker, and Mr. Hacker was angry. He started yelling at Mr. Ngo and calling him names, to the point where Mr. Ngo was so uncomfortable that he went to get gym staff. He went and talked to Natalie Barkley, who we will hear from today. Mr. Hacker continued to yell at Mr. Ngo, finally walking away, but then returning when the gym manager, James Wallace, came to see what was happening because he heard the yelling. He heard the name calling. At this point, Mr. Ngo was uncomfortable because Mr. Hacker was angry and he was aggressive and he was yelling despite there being gym staff present. So Mr. Ngo did what anyone would do, took his phone out and started recording to document what was happening. And this made Mr. Hacker even more angry. And he slapped the phone out of Mr. Ngo's hand so hard that when it hit the ground, the OtterBox cover broke. Mr. Ngo picked his phone up, and Mr. Hacker continued to yell, and again wrested the phone from him forcibly. He took the phone, and he left. He made threats to destroy it. Despite the gym staff asking him to stop, asking him to return it, he walked down the stairs. And you'll hear this testimony from the witnesses that we have present, but you'll also see video evidence of this. Evidence of Mr. Hacker forcibly taking Mr. Ngo's phone and leaving the scene. Mr. Hacker did not return the phone willingly. He only returned it when gym staff forced him to. And that, Your Honor, is robbery in the third degree. The evidence that you will hear is that John Hacker committed or attempted to commit theft, that he did so with using immediate physical force, and that he had the intent to prevent or overcome resistance to his taking of the property. This is a very straightforward case, and once the evidence comes out, we will return to you and ask you to find Mr. Hacker guilty of robbery in the third degree. Thank you.
Defense?
Good morning, Your Honor. This is a somewhat unique case. It's unique because we anticipate that most of the facts about what happened won't really be in dispute. So then the question becomes, Your Honor, what are the legal standards and how do they align with those facts? We anticipate, Your Honor, will hear facts about both Mr. Ngo and Mr. Hacker being independent journalists, about them being on politically opposite ends of the spectrum, about Mr. Hacker being acutely aware of Mr. Ngo. Why? Because Mr. Ngo is hugely recognizable. He is a divisive character. He is someone who currently has 1 million Twitter followers. At the time of these events, he had over 100,000. You're going to hear evidence that Mr. Hacker had reasons to not want to be recorded by Mr. Ngo. You're going to hear a great deal of context about the events that were happening around this time, about events that happened just before these two interacted, and about events that Mr. Hacker witnessed and which left an impression on Mr. Hacker about Mr. Ngo's ability to target people online. We also anticipate you're going to hear more or less undisputed facts about what actually transpired on the day in question, May 7th, 2019. We anticipate you're going to hear that Mr. Hacker observed Mr. Ngo just days after a political event, that just as the state said, he was extremely upset in this moment, that he poured water on Mr. Ngo at one point, that this precipitated an argument, that this was all in public view, that there were multiple employees around, that Mr. Ngo pulled his phone out to start recording Mr. Hacker. Mr. Hacker expressed that he didn't want to be recorded. Mr. Hacker took the phone, walked away with it, had the phone for about 15 to 20 seconds, and when an employee asked for the phone back, he gave it back without resistance. The phone itself was fine. There's a minor crack on the case. Those are going to be the main undisputed facts, Your Honor. So, what are the legal standards in front of us? As Your Honor knows, robbery in the third degree incorporates theft. Theft, in turn, requires a specific criminal mental state. It requires that Mr. Hacker intended to permanently deprive Mr. Ngo of his phone. Not annoy him, not harass, not temporarily deprive, not interfere with a recording, to permanently deprive Mr. Ngo of his property. That's what the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. At the close of evidence, Your Honor, we will ask that this court find Mr. Hacker not guilty. Not guilty because there will be no evidence to support that he actually intended to keep or destroy this phone. Not guilty because the evidence will overwhelmingly demonstrate in the context that there's reasonable doubt about whether his intention was really to permanently deprive or merely just to stop a recording. Not guilty because there's reasonable doubt about the level of force used. And not guilty because this is simply not a robbery.
Okay, one moment. All right, statement calls first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state is going to call Andy Ngo. And just stay standing.
Please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Andy Ngo, A-N-D-Y space N-G-O.
Sorry, I'm just going to move this so I can see you a little better.
I'm concerned.
Morning, Mr. Ngo.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay.
You a little nervous?
Yes?
Why?
Because I'm in the presence of Mr. Hacker.
Can you tell me where you're from?
I'm from Portland, Oregon.
And,
I'm an independent journalist and an author.
so tell me a little bit about your journalism.
Political violence. I first started off as an editor for the student newspaper at Portland State University. I was a multimedia editor, so I did video coverage. Once I left the student paper and was independent and freelance, I primarily covered the protests, indirect actions, and unrest in Portland from late 2016 onwards. In June of 2019, I was severely beaten in the course of my video reporting. And since then, I focused more on writing because it's become very dangerous for me to be on the ground.
And so you write, you've written a book?
I have.
What's that about?
The book is about far-left violent extremism under the banner of so-called Antifa.
And when you were doing your reporting on the protests and the reporting you do now, what do you use to record?
I primarily use my mobile phone.
Okay. And do you still do reporting, or are you you're mostly writing now?
I do both.
Okay. And I think you probably heard defense talk about your social media followers in their opening. Are you fairly well known?
I currently have about 1 million followers on Twitter. I have done television interviews on broadcast media as well as in print.
And so you're from Portland originally, and you said you went to Portland State, and you did a lot of reporting in Portland. Is that right?
Yes,
So are you well known within Portland?
I am.
And do you ever feel threatened because of your work?
It's not about feeling threatened, it's actually being threatened. I have more than a dozen reports to the Portland police spanning several years now of death threats to me, as well as physical visits to my home. I received a protective stalking order earlier this year in the course of that was also because of that person taking issue with my reporting.
I want to talk, I'm going to shift a little bit from your background and talk about the incident that we're here for, that happened on May 7th of 2019. Were you at the gym on that day?
I was.
And that's the Hollywood 24?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the address 4224 Northeast Halsey Street?
Yes.
And what part of Portland is that in?
Northeast Portland.
Okay. And had you been going there for a while?
I had.
And so I just want to start with what you remember first.
I exercised that day in the afternoon. I probably arrived, I'm thinking around 2 p.m. if I recall. It's a normal day. I'm at that time was at the gym maybe about 5 to 6 times a week, usually at that location.
So what do you remember about that day? So you got there at 2. Were you finished with your workout?
I was.
And what happened?
I was heading from the second level towards the ground floor, which is also where the exit is. And while I was on the stairs, from above, a lot of liquid was dumped on my head. Immediately, I was a bit confused. I thought maybe there was a leak above, but I looked up and I saw a man in dark clothing. I walked up the stairs and yelled over to the railing to the ground floor where the front desk is, where there's gym staff. I said, I had just been assaulted. Please come up. Mr. Hacker was maybe about 30 feet away. And then as I stood there, he went up to confront me.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna pause really quick because I have some questions about some of the stuff you said. So I think it would be helpful for me. You mentioned that the exit and I think maybe the front desk were on the first floor of the gym. Is that right?
That is correct.
Was there also equipment on that floor or just the entrance?
On the ground floor is immediately after the front doors, which is also the exit. There's the front desk, which members have to sign in before they can proceed. And then from there to the left would be the men's locker room. To the right would be a children's play area. And then there are stairs heading to the second and third floor. There's no gym equipment on the ground floor.
What's on the second floor?
That is the weight training level.
And then what's on the third floor?
Cardio equipment.
So when you felt the water, you were on the stairs walking from the second to the first floor?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you looked up, you said you saw a gentleman in dark clothing. At that time, did you know who Mr. Hacker was?
I did not recognize him in that immediate moment that it was Mr. Hacker.
And so you used his name when you were talking. When this incident happened, did you know his name?
No.
When did you learn it?
After the attack at the gym, I posted the video of my recording on Twitter. I tagged 24 Hour Fitness. This was after I had called 911. to report the incident. There was a lot of responses on social media, and I recall people posting older news articles that where Mr. Hacker was photographed and interviewed, and I recognized him as the suspect who had robbed me in the gym.
And just so I understand, and we may come back to talk about this because I think chronologically will come up again, but you posted the video to identify him? You were looking for help to identify him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And just, do you see Mr. Hacker or the man who poured water on you in the courtroom today?
I do.
So we're being recorded. Could you just describe what he's wearing for the record?
The suspect is wearing a light blue shirt and a dark gray jacket.
Thank you. So I want to go back. I kind of interrupted you in telling me the story. So you were on the second floor and you saw Mr. Hacker, and I know you didn't know who he was at that time, but just for the ease of the record, I'm going to refer to him by his name. You saw him. Where was he standing?
About 30 feet away, further where the weight equipment was.
On the third floor or on the second floor?
On the second.
Okay, so so when you felt water hit you and you went, did you go towards him or did you yell to the front desk? Where did you go when you felt that?
Immediately as I went up the stairs, I took a left to get to the railing part that overlooks the front desk. And I stood there, and then Mr. Hacker approached me aggressively.
And why did you yell to the front desk staff?
Because I feared that the other individual could escalate, and I wanted staff to be aware that an incident had happened and something could escalate further because this person looked angry.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Why did he look angry? What made you think that?
His posture and the way that he stared me down once I went up the stairs and had a better look at him.
So when you went up the stairs, was he staring at you?
He was.
And about how tall do you think he was compared to you?
He's over 6 feet. I would say at least 6 feet 3 or 4.
So he was looking at you and he was angry. What happened then?
So after I asked for a manager to come up immediately, he approached me and he was angry about my reporting. I didn't really quite understand what he was saying at the time. He mentioned something about Antifa. He mentioned something about my reporting on Twitter, and he was furious. He also said something about breaking vertebrae bones, which I mean that was when it became really scary. I didn't know what was in this individual's mind. By that moment, Miss Natalie Barker, who's a manager at the gym, had come up, and Mr. Hacker then proceeded to go back in the direction of the weights. Miss Barkley asked me for my gym membership number, and she gave me her name. And then a second manager came up at that point, and to step back a bit, when Miss Barkley came up, John Hacker shouted twice, "He's a fascist, he's a fascist."
And what was he doing when he was shouting? Do you remember? Where was he standing or what he was
We
doing?
were close to the top of the stairs, I believe, or slightly to the left.
Do you remember about how far away he was when that happened?
He was feet away from me.
So Miss Barkley was there, and then you said another manager came up.
Yes, that would be Mr. James Wallace.
And what happened when Mr. Wallace came up?
At that point, Mr. Hacker then came back at now the three of us and looked more irate than before. This is when I took out my phone to record in case myself and or somebody else was going to be injured.
Why were you worried about that?
When Mr. Hacker first confronted me about my reporting that day, I then connected that this is the man that I had seen several times before at the direct actions and protests.
Had you ever spoken with him at those?
There was one time where we made small talk. I don't recall if he approached me. I believe he did. It was just casual small talk. I didn't know what his political ideology was. I thought he was an observer like me.
When you say observer, what do you mean?
Possibly another journalist.
And what was the tone when you spoke with him before? Like when you made the small talk, how was that?
I recall him being normal and friendly.
Okay. So when Mr. Wallace came over and Mr. Hacker was more angry, you realized that you'd seen him before, and you said that that was why you got concerned?
I'd seen him before as recently as the 1st of May. In May Day, I was assaulted in the course of recording video that day, and I just connected me with this hostility on the top of the stairs, and seeing him previously. In my mind, I connected. He wasn't there at these protests and direct actions as a journalist. He was there because he was supportive of these far left violent extremist causes. That was connection in my mind.
And so why did that give you concern?
Well, if there was going to be an attack, I wanted some documentation of it.
Why was that? Like, why did you want to document it?
As evidence, I think, I mean, I wasn't aware of any CCTV footage around the gym. I didn't see cameras there before, so
So was it just to protect yourself?
yes.
So Mr. Wallace is there. Mr. Hacker's angry again. You get your phone out to document it. What happens then?
Immediately, Mr. Hacker went up to me and hit the hand where was holding the phone so hard that it fell to the ground, and in the course of that, the protective case was cracked. I immediately went to pick up the phone. The recording is still going. He then uses force to grab it out of my hand. I heard him shout, "I will fucking break your phone." And then he proceeded to flee down the stairs. I stayed on the 2nd level. The gym staff pursued him. A moment later, I don't know what happened at that. It was out of my line of view.
We're gonna again just kind of go back and talk about some of that a little more specifically. So when you had your phone out, how were you holding it, if you remember?
It was, I don't remember. It would,
No problem.
one hand or two, I don't
Do you remember how he hit it out of your hand?
I do not. I just remember the physical contact that was hard.
It was hard. Okay, so when it was hard, did it cause you pain in that instant?
In that moment.
Okay. And so he hits it out of your hand and it falls on the ground, and then you immediately picked it up?
Yes.
What were the gym staff doing while this was happening?
I remember Mr. James Wallace trying to stand in front of Mr. Hacker to stop him from approaching me, but Mr. Hacker just walked around him.
Was that before or after he hit the phone out of your hand?
This would have been before the first contact, first
Okay.
physical contact.
So he was trying to keep you guys apart,
Yes.
and Mr. Hacker just continued to come at you.
Yes.
So you picked your phone up, and then what happened?
I picked it up, and then he, with his hand, forcibly grabbed it out of mine. I had a pretty tight grip, but he pulled it out.
And you didn't give that to him willingly?
I did not.
Were you trying to hold on to your phone to prevent him from taking it?
Yes.
Did he say anything when he took your phone?
He shouted, "I will fucking break your phone."
Did you think he was going to?
Yes.
Why?
Because now I, in my mind, had believed him to be not a journalist observing the protests that I had seen him at previously, but was somebody who was ideologically aligned with those people. He had already been aggressive to me in this incident, was physical, and continued to be extremely angry and threatening.
So what was his like physical demeanor, if you remember when this was all happening? How did he seem?
It seemed like he was building up his size over me. He does tower over me and is a lot heavier than me, and was using his physicality to be intimidating.
So when you got your phone back eventually, you said the case was cracked?
The case was cracked and it had some freezing issues.
The phone did? Did those eventually resolve themselves?
I had to do a hard reset, and then it did seem to be better after that.
Okay. Did you take photos or give the police, when you spoke to them, your phone case and they took photos?
Yes, I did.
Okay. At this time, and let me just check quickly with defense. Do you have any objection to me admitting those photos of the phone case?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, I spoke with defense previously about some of the exhibits, and I believe that the photos I'm going to show are okay to be admitted. If that's all right, I'll just admit them as states 1, 2, and 3.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, exhibits 1, 2, and 3 are received.
Okay, and I'm gonna just show you on the screen. It'll be on the screen in front of you, Mr. No, but also on the screen behind you. And just give me one moment to pull these up. Okay. What kind of phone case did you have, Mr. No?
OtterBox is the brand.
Why'd you have that kind of case? Is there anything special about it?
It's from what T-Mobile service provider. Well, I asked for the one that had the most durability.
Why?
Because I covered a lot of, at that time I covered protest events on the ground, and there's likelihood of if tear gas was used on running, it might drop it, or it might. I just anticipated that I would be in settings where it could be quite physical potentially.
So this is supposed to be a very durable phone case.
Yes.
Miss Berry, may I show these on the screen?
And let's take just a brief break for a moment. So the photographer just came in. Are you with the Oregonian? All right. So I don't know if you were connected via WebEx when I was talking to people at the instructor. So you're welcome to take photographs. There was someone over here that was taking photographs without you here. You are going to be the shared photographer at this point. You're welcome to be back there if you want, or you can come to the jury box. You're welcome to photograph basically counsel table forward. So if someone's on the stand, you can photograph them, lawyers, the judge, the defendant, but you can't photograph anyone who's in the back area. Understood? Yeah. Thank you. All right, Ms. Burgess, you may continue.
So I'm showing you States Exhibit 1. Is this your phone case?
Yes.
And was this photo taken after Mr. Hacker knocked the phone out of your hands?
Yes.
Could you show me, there's a pointer in front of you. If you could or describe to me the damage to the phone case.
So if you're gonna use the pointer, you have to stand up and point to the screen behind you, because the pointer doesn't, if you point on that screen, I don't see anything.
Oh, I have to stand up.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, you can either describe it for the court, or you can describe it so that everybody can see it for the court. But just because otherwise, Judge Dahlin can't see what's on your screen, if that makes sense.
Yes. I actually do not recall where the crack happened. I did suffer a brain hemorrhage in June of 2019 and have residual memory issues as a result of that.
Okay, no problem. Then we're just gonna move on from this. Okay, so we were talking about what happened, and I think we were at the point where Mr. Hacker took your phone out of your hand, and you said he threatened he was gonna break it.
Yes.
What did he do after he got your phone from you?
He proceeded to head down the stairs.
And so this is all happening on the second floor?
Yes.
How close to the stairwell were you?
10 to 15 feet, probably.
Okay. And so did he pause after he got the phone? Did he do anything, or did he immediately try to leave?
Immediately after he forcibly took it from me, he immediately began leaving.
And do you remember him saying anything besides that he was going to, I believe you said what he said, but I can't remember exactly what the words were, but that he was going to destroy your phone. Did he say anything besides that?
I recall him saying something, I don't remember the exact quote, but there was something brief before the "I will fucking break your phone."
But he didn't say anything else as he took your phone and left.
After that, I do not recall hearing anything.
Okay. So what happened when he started going down the stairs?
James Wallace pursued him. I do not recall if Natalie Barker did as well. That's the other gym manager. I stayed put on the second level.
And do you remember either Miss Barkley or Mr. Wallace saying anything to him?
I could hear that there were voices in the stair. I don't recall what was being said.
And how were you feeling when that happened?
In shock.
So he took your phone and headed towards the exit. What happened after that?
After James Wallace pursued Mr. Hacker, Mr. Wallace returned the phone to me. Actually, I don't remember if it was Mr. Wallace or Natalie Barkley returned the phone to me, but it was one of the gym managers.
But Mr. Hacker did not return the phone to you.
Mr. Hacker did not.
Did you try to follow them when he tried to leave?
No.
Why not?
I was afraid that could give another opportunity for Mr. Hacker to make physical contact with me.
And did you at any point make any physical contact with him?
No.
Did you threaten him at all?
No.
Did you say anything to him at all?
When he first approached me and took issue with my reporting, I asked him what he was talking about. I believe that was the only thing I said to him in that entire interaction.
Did it seem like he was trying to have a conversation with you?
No.
What did it seem like?
He wanted to have a confrontation.
So you got your phone back from gym staff. Where did you go when you got your phone back?
Mr. Hacker was still there in the building, so I immediately left for my safety. I went to the parking structure of the gym in my car and called I don't remember if I called non-emergency or 911, but immediately reported it.
Did an officer respond?
Yes, about some 2 hours later, James Wallace gave me a call on my phone, and I had left the area. Mr. Wallace let me know that I can feel safe in the gym and that Mr. Hacker will no longer be at that location or any other 24-hour fitness location. I recall him letting me know that police was either there or on the way. I don't recall that specific, but I returned to the gym and Portland police officer Edward Johnson was there to take my statement as well as to photograph my mobile device.
And did you check to see if you had successfully recorded anything or if the recording was still there after Mr. Hacker had your phone?
After I reported the incident to the authorities in my car, I tweeted out the video on my Twitter.
So you did have a video of the incident?
I did.
And did you give that video to Officer Johnson?
Yes, that day I believe I emailed it to him because it was a digital file on my phone.
I'm gonna show you just a screenshot of what has been marked as State's Exhibit 4. 1 second. Okay. I am ready if it's okay. Okay. And could I publish this, Your Honor, to have Mr. No identify the exhibit?
It's fine. We don't have a jury here, so we don't
Okay.
have those same concerns.
Mr. No, do you recognize this still?
Yes, I do.
Is this from the video that you recorded?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to, unless there's objection, counsel, I'm going to play this video and
So is Exhibit 4 still, or is it the video?
it's the video.
Okay.
I just want him to authenticate it so that there's foundation for it to be admitted.
Any objection to Exhibit 4 being played?
Your Honor, our only objection would be on completeness grounds, and I think some questions in aid of objection might be instructive.
Go ahead.
Mr. No, this is not the complete video that you submitted to the police, is it?
This is the complete file.
You clipped that video, didn't it?
No.
You would acknowledge that Mr. Hacker is the last person holding the phone in the video.
Yes.
And you would agree that he handed the phone to staff just after this video cuts off.
That I don't know.
So is it your testimony under oath that it's your understanding that Mr. Hacker stopped the video?
I don't know how the video stopped.
Okay, but you acknowledge he was the last person holding it when it ends?
He would be, yes.
Okay. No further questions. We'll withdraw the objection.
All right, Exhibit 4 is received, and you can play the video.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sorry, I realized I need to adjust my volume because I have it off so that it won't be disruptive. Okay.
Please, sir. Guys, you want to video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone.
Here, give me his phone. Hey.
Excuse me, sir. Please don't do that. I don't want to have to go into like revoking members.
Okay, so I apologize. I kind of jumped around at the beginning a little bit. I'm going to play it again so that we can talk about it. So, right there, what's happening right there?
That was the first physical contact when he hit the phone out of my hand and it hit the ground.
Okay. Play it again. So at this point, right here, is that Mr. Hacker we can see?
Yes.
Do you know who the gentleman to his right is?
That's Mr. Wallace, gym manager.
And so, because we can see him, you're holding this phone?
Yes.
Okay, so this is when you picked it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Please, sir. Please, sir. Guys, you want to video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone.
And at that point, what's happening?
That's when he forcibly grabbed it out of my hand.
Okay. Here, give me his phone. Hey.
Excuse me, sir.
Just, well, what we see here, this stairway, is that the stairs down to the exit that you were talking about?
Yes. And in this still, Mr. Hacker has the phone in his hand.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions to that video, so I'm going to disconnect this. So we talked a little bit about you had seen Mr. Hacker before this date. Are you currently involved in a civil suit against Mr. Hacker?
I am.
Is that suit against Mr. Hacker for the same conduct that we've talked about here today?
Yes. Plus something that has happened after.
And we're just going to talk about what's happening here today, but when did you file that?
Mr. Hacker was served in July of 2020.
And why did you file that suit?
After the May 2019 incident involving Mr. Hacker at the gym, I waited months and months and months for a charge to be brought or charges to be brought against the suspect, and nothing happened. Waited a year and decided to move forward with a civil lawsuit.
Thank you, Mr. No. I don't have any other questions for you now.
Thank you.
Okay, cross-examination.
Hi, Mr. No. You stated under oath just a few minutes ago that the situation became very dangerous for you in Portland
Yes.
and that you were getting death threats.
Yes.
You reported to Sky News in 2021 that you actually fled Portland.
Yes.
You moved to London.
For a time.
So you moved to a totally different country,
Yes.
across an ocean,
Yes.
because of threats you received.
And violence I have suffered.
And violence you've suffered. And that's because you've become very recognizable.
I don't believe it that the violence against me is because I'm recognizable. It's because I do reporting on far left violent extremists who believe in engaging in political violence against their targets.
You don't believe that the fact that you have 1 million Twitter followers has something to do with you being targeted?
No, because there are other celebrities in the political sphere who have even larger followings who don't have to live under the type of safety and security restrictions that I do.
Okay, but you did just testify that you think the targeting is a result of your reporting.
Yes.
Okay, so you would acknowledge then, at the very least, that your online rhetoric and reporting can make you a target.
I acknowledge that there are ideological violent extremists who take issue with my crime reporting.
Yes or no, Mr. No, you would acknowledge that your reporting can make you a target.
Yes.
And by the same logic, you would understand why someone else might not want to be made a target.
Yes.
You understand intuitively that having 1 million Twitter followers, at the time of these events, over 100,000, you tweet about someone, that can make them a target.
Your Honor, I just want to make sure that we're not going to go into a realm that's not relevant to this, and I want to just kind of alert everyone that this is a door that if defense opens may become relevant if Mr. Hacker chooses to testify.
Your Honor, my response to that would be that the door, as far as Mr. No is concerned, has already been opened. He already talked about some of these events. I'm probing to provide further context. Additionally, with respect to Mr. Hacker, it is immediately relevant in this case. This context, this background, Mr. Hacker's awareness of some of the activities I'm probing goes directly to his intent at the moment in question. All of this context is important.
I don't hear an objection. It's more of putting the defense on notice that the state would be arguing the door's been opened if Mr. Hacker testifies.
Understood.
So we'll leave it at that.
Understood. Thanks, Your Honor. So, sorry. Yeah. So just to get back on track here, you recognize that when you tweet about someone, they can become a target online.
No, I don't recognize that.
Are you saying under oath that you don't understand your ability with 1 million Twitter followers to potentially make a target of someone that you designate online?
I do reporting on individuals, organizations, and events.
Thank you. It's a yes or no question.
Ask the question again.
Okay. Are you saying under oath that you do not acknowledge that it's possible when you post about someone online to your 1 million followers that they may become a target?
Can you define target?
Receiving unwanted attention, threats, and the kind of violence that you've testified about receiving yourself.
Ask the question again, please.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that when you tweet about someone online, it can potentially make them a target in the same way that you've been targeted?
Yes. Keyword there being potential.
Do you acknowledge it's possible? I'm sorry, Your Honor. I just heard some commentary from the background about what's being said. I just asked the court to direct people to not make any commentary.
I was in a photograph. I thought we weren't supposed to photograph.
So the yeah.
You're technically in the photograph. You're a very out of focus blob. I was photographing the fence, which I was.
All right. So in terms of, the photographs aren't obviously being live streamed because they're not photographs. Any photographs that are taken have to comply with the court's oral order. Now, I'll submit a written order for the parties that are consistent with that, but you can't, the people who are members of the public, even if they're journalists, can't be photographed. And so if you had a picture you wanted to use, you'd need to crop them out or you blur them out so they're not recognizable, okay? So you may continue, and I appreciate that the media has a right to be here, but the media is to be here as observers, and I don't want to be in a situation where we're interrupting any more to have discussions about the media. So everyone needs to make sure that you're being quiet observers and comply with the court's orders, okay? All right, Mr. Scissors, you may continue.
Mr. Ngo, you're a very active user on Twitter.
Yes.
You've posted in the last 24 hours.
Yes.
You post very regularly.
Yes.
You consider yourself a journalist,
Yes.
but you've been criticized as being a right-wing provocateur.
Others have characterized me that way.
Okay.
I disagree.
And a pseudo-journalist.
Your Honor, I'm just going to ask that we let him fully answer the question before we continue. I think we're kind of losing what the question is.
So it's best if the lawyer and the witness make sure that you let each other finish, so there's not talking over each other, because if someone needs to listen to this recording later on, or even listen to it now, they need to be able to hear the answer. So
Okay. I'll clarify my question. I was not asking whether you agree or disagree. I'm asking whether you have been criticized as such.
Yes, by my detractors.
That includes the Columbia University Journalism Review describing you as a, quote, discredited provocateur.
Your Honor, I'm just going to object. There is no basis for this if we're just.
overruled.
That was an opinion piece by a writer on that publication.
You've received criticism for dishonest reporting.
From my detractors.
You were fired, for example, from Portland State University for comments about Muslims.
I was not fired by Portland State University.
You were suspended as well by Twitter for racial and transphobic rhetoric.
Your Honor, I just feel like we're verging into a realm that is not relevant to the issue at hand. I would ask that we stay away from things that are just not relevant to the robbery question.
So I will allow the defense some leeway. I don't know that's terribly relevant, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but you can ask the questions.
Understood. I'll move forward, Your Honor. You've regularly reported on rallies that included far-right groups.
Yes, insofar as both the far right and the far left were present.
Okay, understood. You've live streamed, for example, Patriot prayer events.
Your Honor, again, I'm just going to make a relevance objection. I have an idea of where this is going. If we need to have a separate discussion about this outside of the witness, I think that's fine, but I don't think this is relevant to what is happening.
Like I said, it doesn't appear to have a lot of relevance, but I want to give the defense some leeway, so.
I understand. I just want to
Jury trial.
flag for the court that I think when we spoke earlier, and based on defense's opening, I believe that they are going to try to bring in events that are fully irrelevant to this. And I would ask that we just stay away from those because it's not relevant and it's not appropriate.
Your Honor, may I be heard on that? we believe the evidence adduced today will include that events that I'm probing into were discussed on the date in question. They are immediately relevant. I'm talking about the protest.
Discussed by whom?
By Mr. Hacker and Mr. Ngo on May 7th, 2019. That Mr. Hacker's intent relates to some of Mr. Ngo's conduct, his perception of Mr. Ngo's conduct at those events, including something he already testified about May Day. So just days before they interacted.
So I'm gonna allow the questioning. If it's not relevant,
It's also, we're fully outside the scope of the direct at this point.
okay. So I'm overruling the objection about outside the scope. And in terms of relevance, I'd ask that you kind of get to the meat of this rather quickly, okay?
Fair enough. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ngo, you're aware that some of your reporting, some of your rhetoric online has instigated violence.
No.
You're aware that some of the people that you have posted about have received just the same kind of threats that you've received.
I'm not aware.
So you're not aware of what your Twitter followers are doing?
As you mentioned, I have over 1 million followers on Twitter. I don't read the comments from hundreds of thousands of people.
Understood. So you can't really keep track of what happens as a response to your tweets?
Not in every tweet.
Okay. So it's possible then that some of your reporting has led to violence?
No.
Just a moment ago, you said you don't have the time or you can't keep track of what your followers do. And now you're saying it's not even possible that some of your posting can lead to violence?
It's a theoretical about what could happen, and it wouldn't be accurate for me to give a yes or no answer to that.
The point is
Too
you don't know.
theoretical.
Your Honor, they're asking him to speculate. That's what defense is at. He's asking him to speculate about the actions or thoughts of people that he doesn't know. This is purely speculation and it's not appropriate.
Overruled.
I'll move forward. You were reporting, as you testified, on May Day.
Yes.
And is May Day kind of a special day in the protest world? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. What sort of things go on May Day?
Demonstrations and rallies and protests.
Okay. And this occurred just a few days before the 24-hour fitness incident, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You specifically, well, and I just want to make sure, so you're understanding that both you and Mr. Hacker were at that event?
I saw him that day.
Okay, so you saw him there. You reported very specifically that the only violence that day came from the left.
I guess question 8 objection. When he says you reported, I'm not sure what he's referring to. It would be helpful to know what we're talking about.
I can be more specific. Your online content as a journalist, in the capacity of a journalist about the events that day, indicated that the only violence that day came from the left.
Can you refer to a specific thing that I wrote? Because I don't recall what you're talking about that
So you
would
don't recall
characterize
your
that.
reporting that day?
I posted videos that day. I didn't do commentary.
You did not report that a person who you believed was associated with Antifa had her vertebrae broken, did you?
Your Honor, he's asking him about what he didn't report, and Mr. No's already said he didn't post any commentary and he doesn't remember.
No, Your Honor, he asked to be more specific in that he didn't recall. I'm refining the question. Maybe it'll jog his memory. And this goes directly to something he said, Mr. Hacker said, on the date in question.
All right, objection is overruled.
What's the question?
Did you or did you not report on someone who had their vertebra broken by a Patriot Prayer member?
I tweeted out a video that was recorded by another live streamer that day of an individual being hit with a weapon and collapsing to the ground. That video I shared on my social media.
But you did not report that there were any injuries or any violence other than that perpetrated by people on the left.
Your Honor, he's already answered this question. He said he just posted videos and did not post commentary. We're just going in circles at this point, and it's argumentative.
Your Honor, I'd respond that the witness is doing their best not to answer the questions, which is why I'm having to follow up so many times. Overruled.
What's the question?
The only posting, the only reporting you did that day that talked about violence was by folks on the left, and specifically it excluded any reference to someone on the left having their vertebra broken.
No, as I just said a moment ago, I posted video that was recorded by another video live streamer that day. I posted my clips on Twitter as well as YouTube, which showed brawling involving left and right.
So you acknowledge today that the right was involved in violence on that day, the right in your mind?
I believe I've always characterized it as a brawl.
Understood. So let's just talk about the actual day in question. So bringing us up to May 7th, 2019. You testified under oath today that Mr. Hacker made some comment about breaking vertebra, and that's when you got really scared.
Yes.
That's your testimony today, under oath.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You told something completely different to the police, didn't you?
No.
You told the police that Mr. Hacker made several statements, including, do you know someone had their vertebra broken?
That doesn't contradict what I said under oath.
That doesn't contradict what you said. You said under oath that he said a comment about breaking vertebra, and that's what made you really scared.
I didn't remember the full quote.
Okay, so you don't remember.
What I remembered was something about breaking vertebrae.
Okay, so you just misremembered the quote. When you testified.
I didn't
earlier.
misremember the quote because I didn't quote him. I said the words used were something about breaking vertebrae.
And you said that specifically made you very scared.
Yes.
But you would agree that that is taken totally out of context.
No, I don't agree with that.
You told police that his statement was about someone else having their vertebra broken. He
I
was
didn't-
upset with your reporting.
No. I quoted to police what I recalled him saying that day.
Okay. You would agree that your recollection was better on that day than it is today.
Probably.
Especially in light of the fact that, as you just testified, you've had a brain hemorrhage.
Yes.
Okay. You testified that Mr. Hacker hit your hand very hard.
Yes.
You said something similar at grand jury.
Yes.
But you didn't give any statements to the police that you were actually injured.
By that point, several hours later, I didn't have any residual pain. The officer Edward asked me to rate my pain on a scale, I believe, to 1 to 10. I probably said 1 or 0, something like that. I didn't have pain at that moment.
Fair enough. And in fact, there were no red marks, bruising, or really any evidence whatsoever of an injury.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. You omitted to mention earlier when the state was asking you questions that in addition to saying something about breaking the phone, Mr. Hacker also said something about not wanting to be recorded.
No, I didn't omit.
So Mr. Hacker did make statements to you about not wanting to be recorded.
I do not remember that today.
Okay. You don't recall seeing that in court today?
In the video?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but are you asking memories from my memory, or am I just recalling things from video?
Okay, so you don't actually recall what happened.
I don't recall the line, his statement about not recording.
Okay, so your memory is such that you only remember him saying, "I want to break your phone," but you don't remember his
No,
other statements.
he didn't say I want to break your phone. He said, "I will fucking break your phone."
Okay, but your memory today left out that other part.
It didn't leave out. I don't remember if any what was said before with clarity to feel comfortable quoting it during my testimony here.
When you signed up with 24-Hour Fitness, you had to sign some paperwork and go over membership policies and things like that, right?
Yes.
And that included a list of prohibited activities.
I don't remember what was in the contract.
Okay. Would you be surprised to know that one of those prohibited activities is filming people inside of 24-Hour Fitness?
That actually does surprise me because I see people filming themselves lifting weights as well as photographing themselves.
Good catch. Let me clarify. Would you be surprised to know that there's a policy against non-consensual recording in 24-Hour Fitness?
That does not surprise me.
Okay. Would you be surprised to know that there's signs posted all over the place to that effect?
I don't recall that at that particular location.
Okay. You actually told the police at the time that Mr. Hacker took your phone because he didn't want to be recorded.
I don't recall that.
Mr. Hacker never threatened to hurt you.
Can you
correct?
read what you're talking about in reference
Sir, no,
to the
I'll
police
ask the
report?
questions and you can just answer. Mr. Hacker never threatened you personally with physical violence, correct?
That day, no.
So just so I understand the sequencing correct, you guys get in an argument, he hits the phone down, you pick it up, and then he makes a statement about not wanting to be recorded, and he'll break your fucking phone.
There was no argument on my part. It was him yelling at me.
Okay, understood. And you testified earlier today in a grand jury that he was going down the stairs when he walked away.
Yes.
And you also testified he was only about 15 feet away.
Can you clarify? 15 feet away from
15
what?
feet away from, where you guys were standing, kind of face to face.
No, when we were standing face to face, he was feet away, right next to me.
Okay, let me clarify the question. Apologies. He was about 15 feet away on the staircase from where you two were standing when you were arguing.
Maximum of 15 is probably less than that.
Okay, so he hadn't made it very far.
We were standing close to the stairs.
Yeah. And so an employee asked him for the phone back.
I don't recall hearing that part.
Okay,
If I stayed back.
So you don't remember. So you don't recall whether, for example, Mr. Hacker put up any sort of fight about giving the phone back on the staircase?
I did not pursue Mr. Hacker as he made his way down the stairs, so I didn't see.
So you don't know. Your phone was knocked out of your hands originally, and that was actually the only time the phone sustained any damage, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. And you don't really even recall from viewing photos where the crack was or if it was visible on your phone case.
It was visible enough that I recall showing the officer, but I don't remember where on the device the crack occurred.
You told the police that the phone worked just fine after you reset it.
It did after I reset it.
Yeah. So the phone itself was fine. Did you provide any evidence to the DA's office of your phone case before this incident?
I don't understand the question.
Did you provide any evidence to the DA's office of the condition of your phone case before that incident?
Your Honor, it may be helpful to everyone if we clarify what the incident, like before what incident, what the timeline is. I think that may be the confusion.
Happily. May 7th, 2019.
Did I have any contact with the DA's office about my phone case before May 7th? Is that your question?
No. My question is whether after these incidents, after May 7th, 2019, if you produced any evidence to the DA's office of what your phone case's condition was before May 7th. So yes or no?
No.
Sorry, did you say no?
No.
You've testified that Mr. Hacker's intent, or you suggested today that Mr. Hacker's intent was to intimidate you.
Yes.
So you think his intent was to frighten and intimidate?
Yes.
Okay. And to stop the recording?
I don't know if I don't know.
Okay. You'd agree that Mr. Hacker didn't make any attempts to stomp on the phone?
He did not.
You'd agree he didn't make any attempts to chuck the phone off that second floor that you were on?
I don't know what he was doing with the phone once he left my view when he was heading down the stairs.
Did you observe him attempt to throw the phone?
I did not see that.
Thank you. You filed a civil lawsuit, correct?
Yes, sir.
How many people are named in that?
6 individuals and 1 entity.
And what are you seeking in that civil lawsuit?
Against whom?
Well, how about against Mr. Hacker?
Well, I accuse him of common law assault, common law battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress.
What remedies are you seeking?
Can you define remedies?
What sort of relief are you asking for in that complaint?
Seeking damages.
Okay. So money.
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of a video that was produced by Mr. Ponte?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is outside the scope of the direct.
Overruled. So the defense could certainly call Mr. Ngo as their own witness. This being a bench trial, it seems to make more sense that we can do everything at one time.
That's fine, Your Honor. If the defense is intending to do that and this is going to transfer into a direct examination, I'd like that we talk about that and make that clear for the record. The video that they're referring to is a video of Mr. Hacker, so any statements made in that video by Mr. Ponte or Mr. Hacker are all hearsay. That video is not in evidence, and I am objecting to them bringing it up purely because...
All right, what's the purpose of showing the video?
Can you ask that again, Your Honor? My apologies.
What's the purpose of showing this video or even asking about the video?
The purpose of this video is it again goes to Mr. Hacker's intent about not wanting to be recorded.
But if there are statements in the video of Mr. Hacker, those are hearsay.
It relates more to the fact that it happened, that as a result of the video being posted by Mr. Ngo, the sort of harassment campaign was engaged against Mr. Hacker, which is precisely what he was concerned about in the first place. The proof's in the pudding, and it also speaks to the sort of general climate, and it goes to this witness's credibility as to whether his postings can lead to people being targeted.
And so, Ms. Burgess, you've seen the video, so you know what we're talking about?
Oh, yeah, Your Honor. I mean, I just want to, first of all, object to them calling it a harassment campaign. There's no evidence of any of this on the record. This is just defense's statements. And none of the things that he stated just now are hearsay exceptions. And he can't admit it. exhibit in through my witness that is fully hearsay.
Well, Your Honor,
I don't even think he can. I mean, he can ask him about it and not elicit any statements. So that's where we were. I don't think he even moved to admit it. I'm just objecting because none of this came up on direct, and what he's asking about is entirely hearsay and not part of what we're talking about.
Well, there's certainly, the defense is certainly entitled to a wide scope of cross-examination. The hearsay objection is something separate. So in terms of it being outside the scope, the objection's overruled. In terms of hearsay,
well, Your Honor,
what would you, if this was played
Yeah.
and Mr. Hacker's statements are included, what would you be offering those statements for?
for the impressions made on Mr. Hacker also goes to motivation, goes to his intent, and it potentially goes to impeachment on.
But intent is not an exception to the hearsay rule. I mean, if it sounds like you'd be offering them for the truth of the matter asserted in the statement, because I guess what is the actual statement that? Give me an example of the statement
Your Honor,
that is on the video.
So I think it first of all goes to Mr. Hacker's impressions it made upon him, and also there also are potentially some statements against interest in there, which relate to whether Mr. Hacker acknowledged that he was in fact at the 24-hour fitness and did some of these things. But the evidence would be adduced really just to demonstrate that these things did in fact happen. It's to
We'll get an example. Just one of the statements would be on the video. What would be one of the big statements you would want to get in?
It would be, for example, that Mr. Hacker had, Mr. Ponte is provoking at one point him to take his phone, and Mr. Hacker says he doesn't want to, and relates back to the incident at hand. And
okay.
He's taught there's issues that relate to intent and his concerns about Mr. No posting material about him, and the proof's in the pudding, so to speak. That this is proof positive. It's an event. Where it's the statements themselves are not really what has evidentiary value. It's the fact that it happened. The truth does not need to accept any of the statements contained in there for the truth of the matter asserted. The point is just that he was approached by someone who indicated they watched the video that Mr. No posted, and it goes to Mr. Hacker's credibility about not wanting to be recorded.
All right. Now that I have a better understanding of what the defense is inquiring about, it does seem that is outside the scope of the direct examination. It's something that could be brought up in the defense case in chief if the defense offers a case. Mr. No, are you planning on being here throughout the trial?
Yes.
So Mr. No is going to be here. He can be called as a witness in the defense case to explore these, and then we'd have to deal with the admissibility issues at that point. But it does seem that this is going further than the direct examination, even with the broad scope for cross.
Understood. Thanks, Your Honor. You have, in fact, posted information about Mr. Hacker.
I have related to his arrest and involvement in direct actions, yes.
You've posted his mugshot.
Yes.
Can I ask a question, made an objection?
You may.
Was this posted before or after this incident?
After.
This is not relevant, Your Honor.
Your Honor, once again, it goes to the issue of credibility, and it's sort of proof positive of the fact that Mr. Hacker had these concerns.
Well, actions taken afterwards, I don't think have the same weight about the concerns that Mr. Hacker might have had as actions taken before.
Okay, understood, Your Honor. Okay. Mr. No, did you ever send anyone out to confront Mr. Hacker
No.
after the act?
No.
Nothing further.
Burgess, how long do you think you'll be on cross? Or
Very
excuse me,
brief.
redirect. All right.
Brief redirect, Your
All
Honor.
right, let's go ahead and do the redirect.
Okay. And Mr. No, are you okay? Do you need a comfort break before we continue?
We can continue.
Okay. So when you spoke to police, did you give them a pain rating?
I did.
And you gave them the pain rating of what happened at the time, of your pain at the moment you spoke with them?
At that moment that I was speaking to Officer Johnson.
And that was 2 hours at least after the incident?
Yes.
So at the time that Mr. Hacker struck your hand, you had pain.
That hurt.
And I just want to be clear because defense asked you if Mr. Hacker ever threatened you with violence. And defense characterized that he never threatened you with violence, but I want to just walk back through the events. He came at you aggressively was your testimony, correct?
Yes.
When you went up to see who had poured water on you, he was coming at you in an aggressive manner.
Yes.
He was yelling.
Yes.
And then when you actually did interact with him, when you took your phone out, did he strike you?
Yes, he did.
So he didn't threaten you with violence, but he actually was violent to you.
Yes, that's correct.
And you didn't know about the recording policy.
I didn't.
But you weren't recording him just to record him. You were recording him to document this.
Exactly.
Because you felt unsafe.
Yes.
Defense talked with you a little bit about Mr. Hacker's intent to intimidate you. Why did you think he was doing that? Not like what were his motivations. What about his body language and words made you think he was trying to intimidate you?
Well, he was screaming and yelling. And how close he got to me in those interactions. He approached me every time and got very close. He's looking down on me because he's much taller, and he's screaming and yelling.
And was he doing that before you even took your phone out to record?
That was before.
I have no more questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right.
Just a very brief recross, if I may.
There was no new area explored, Your Honor. There's no grounds for recross.
Well, what would be the basis for recross? We generally don't do recross.
I'll withdraw it. No problem.
All right, so this is probably a good time for a break. Let's take, let's say at least 10 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. So back here at 11:05. Looks like it's 10:55 now. All right.
11:05?
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll go grab my
Yes, Your
next
Honor.
witness.
How many witnesses?
Okay, so yeah, we're off to a surprisingly spicy start. Yeah, I imagine that the rest of the state's witnesses are probably going to be less, I'm blanking my word here. Less sensational, and it's probably going to be a little bit more business as usual kind of testimony. That said, since we've got a few minutes that we're waiting for the courts, I'm going to go ahead and put the hold music on, and yeah, a chance to refill your coffee, pop some new popcorn, call for an ambulance if you got alcohol poisoning after whatever drinking game, and yeah, see y'all soon.
understand that there was an issue out in the hallway with
A couple people who are in the courtroom now having a disagreement and that they were filming each other. At least one person was filming somebody. I have two comments. One, as a legal matter, recording is not allowed in the public areas of the courthouse. So you can't record things in the hallway. Second, as a practical matter, I don't know anything about I don't know what the issue was, other than two people that were in the courtroom now had a dispute about each other and they're filming each other. No one is going to change anybody's mind if you have discussion in the hallway, and if you pull out the cameras and start videoing each other right now, just don't engage. You can, I'm not, that's not an order, it's a practical suggestion that if you actually want to have a productive conversation with somebody, you can work on having a productive conversation, but it's unlikely that you're going to have a productive conversation here in the courthouse. And it doesn't do anybody any good to start pulling out the cameras. And I realize that this is an issue that's involved in this very case here. But I don't want there to be another case where somebody is filming somebody and someone pulls the camera out and then there's another robbery charge just because of what happened here watching the trial. So you can talk to whoever you want, but it would be probably in everyone's best interest to not talk. I'll just leave it at that. So, Ms. Burgess, you may call your next witness.
Yep. Your Honor, the state is going to call Natalie Barkley. Stay standing and Ms. Berry will get you sworn.
Please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may go around and have a seat. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure. Natalie Barkley, Natalie Barkley.
Thank you, Ms. Barkley. Where are you from?
I live in Sandy.
In Oregon?
Yeah.
How long have you lived in Oregon?
In Oregon?
Mhm.
My whole life.
And where do you currently work?
24 Fitness
Which location?
in Gresham.
And have you always been at that location?
No, I've worked at 6 different locations throughout I've worked there 16 years, so quite a few different locations.
Have you worked at the Hollywood location?
Yeah.
Is that located at 4224 Northeast Halsey Street?
Yes.
And what was your position when you worked there?
Operations manager.
Could you tell me a little bit about what you did?
I was in charge of the front desk, retail, cleanliness, ordering supplies, customer service.
Would you be kind of like out and interacting with people?
Usually more at the front desk.
Okay. And could you kind of walk me through the layout of the Hollywood location?
Sure. So we have 2 entrances and then one that come to one entrance, and then it's the front desk. And like the retail area, you go down a small hallway and you can go up the stairs to the cardio, the locker rooms, the pool. The whole second floor is weights and the whole third floor is cardio.
So the first floor is the entrance and exit and the front desk, and then you go up the stairs to get everywhere else.
Correct.
So were you working at that location in May of 2019?
Yes.
And do you remember an argument that occurred between two gym members?
I do.
Do you remember who either of those people were?
Yes.
Could you tell me their names if you know them?
John Hacker and Andy, I don't recall the last name.
Do you see Mr. Hacker in the courtroom? Could you, we're being audio recorded, so could you describe some of the clothing he's wearing for the record?
Looks like a gray suit with a blue shirt and a blue tie.
Thank you. Can you tell me what you remember about that incident?
Sure. I remember being at the front desk and Andy either came to the front desk or we had the second floor. It's like an opening, kind of like this, but there's no glass. Asking for assistance up here because a member had took his phone.
Okay, so he asked you for assistance because someone had taken his phone. Did you hear? You heard Andy. Did you hear anyone else?
I don't recall.
Okay. So what did you do?
Oh, sorry. I was trying to find my general manager. I couldn't find him, so I went upstairs to see what was going on. And the two, they were like arguing. So he took my phone. I was like, can you just give him back his phone?
And I'm sorry, who took whose phone?
Mr. Hacker took Andy's phone.
And did you see that happen?
No.
So you were asking Mr. Hacker to return Mr. No's phone to him?
Correct.
And what happened?
I don't really recall like details other than there didn't return his phone.
That Mr. Hacker didn't return the phone? Do you remember anything about water?
Vaguely.
What do you remember?
I vaguely remember possibly one of them threw water at each other or something. It's a very vague memory. I couldn't tell you which one did what or if it was water, if it was something else.
No problem. Do you remember anything that was being said when you were asking for the phone to be given back?
Not any details that I could recall.
Okay. I am going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 4. I'm going to go to give me one. Okay, I'm just going to show you a still from this, and I want to see if you recognize anything. It's going to be on the screen in front of you and also on the screen behind you. Is that you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to play part of this and see if you recognize your voice. Play it from the beginning because it's short. Oh, my volume is muted. I apologize. Hold on. Okay.
Please, sir. Guys, you want a video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone.
Here, give me the phone. Hey.
Excuse me, sir. Please don't do that.
So is that your voice that we hear?
Mm-hmm.
And what were you asking him at that time?
I don't recall what I was probably to give him stop fighting, give him his phone back.
Okay. So were you standing there when this happened?
Apparently, I don't recall that part.
No problem. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination?
Very brief. Hi, thanks for being here. How's your memory of this whole event?
Very foggy. Not
Yeah.
good.
You mentioned that there was arguing.
Mm-hmm.
So they were arguing back and forth.
From what I recall, yeah.
And you observed Mr. Hacker at the end of this give the phone back.
I don't recall. Like, I don't know if I don't remember if the phone was given back or not.
Okay. Do you recall any other specific statements that were made when they were arguing?
Not any specifics other than, I believe we asked them to leave the building.
Okay. Did you, you mentioned they were both members? Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you familiar with 24 hours membership policies?
Yes.
Okay. And there's a policy regarding no consensual recording, correct?
It's different now than it was then.
Okay. What was it then?
I believe there was no recording at all.
Okay. Did you try to stop Mr. Ngo from recording Mr. Hacker?
I don't recall.
Do you remember if anyone tried to stop him?
I don't recall.
Okay. You would agree there's a strict policy against that, correct?
Back then, correct.
Yeah. Kind of a zero tolerance policy.
Yes.
And membership could be revoked as a result.
Correct.
But to the best of your recollection, no one said or did anything to stop the recording.
I don't recall.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Just a brief redirect. You testified on direct that you didn't recall details other than Mr. Hacker not returning the phone. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the policy on recording, were people allowed to record themselves? Were people allowed to record anything?
People obviously recorded people, like themselves, like it's Jim, even though it was like back then. You couldn't record like in the locker rooms, obviously.
What would you guys do if someone was recording?
We would ask them to stop.
Would you smack a phone out of their hand?
I mean, I wouldn't.
Would you take a phone from somebody? It was a part of the gym's policy to physically take a phone? No. Okay. Do you know if Mr. Ngo's membership was revoked?
From what I recall, they both were.
From 24? Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, you may step down. May she be released from her subpoena?
That would be great. Please state, Your Honor.
We're not going to call her as a witness.
All right, so you're released from your subpoena. Thank you. State's next witness?
Yeah, may I just go out into the hallway?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Your Honor, the state's calling Lisa Lochner.
Please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do. You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Lisa Lochner, Lockner.
Thank you, Ms. Lochner. How are you currently employed?
I am not with 24. I am working as a security officer at the Port of Vancouver.
Were you with 24 Hour Fitness in 2019?
Yes, I was.
And what was your position with them?
District Loss Prevention Manager.
And so what gyms did that cover?
I had Portland, Northern California.
Okay, so like all of Portland?
Yes.
Did that include the Hollywood location?
Yes, it did.
And so what did you do in your position?
We did audits. I worked with clubs on preserving video, worked with law enforcement on collecting evidence.
And do you remember an incident on May 7th, 2019 that you spoke with the police about?
Yes.
And what did you talk to the police officer about in that case?
Well, the officer would have requested information, I would have provided it for him.
And why, what was the process for that?
The club manager would obviously be present during an incident, and then they would work with me, and I would be the liaison with law enforcement.
So were the club managers able to just turn information over to police themselves?
No.
Why is that?
Our policy, our attorneys decided that we would vet the information and provide it with law enforcement directly.
And so did you speak with Officer Johnson about the May 7th, 2019 incident?
Yes, I did.
And did you give him the name of the person he was inquiring about? What was that name?
I remember the last name of Hacker.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for this witness, Your Honor.
No cross.
May this witness be excused from the subpoena?
She may, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, so you're finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to just step out of checking out.
Do you mind filling me up?
And Your Honor, the witness is just coming up from the fifth floor, so I'm going to grab it.
We'll go off the record. Your folks are welcome to stand and stretch if you'd like. Leave the WebEx open.
Twitter very heavy. Various social media. It's really.
So yeah, that's that's a thing that just happened, I guess. I know of 2 other people that it appears the state was planning on calling as witnesses based on filings that were made by the defense. It looks like they may also be calling from Portland Police an Officer Lamont Johnson, and then one other civilian type person that I don't know anything about them. Yeah, so while we got a minute, the short and long of the trial, May 2019, there was an allegation that John Hacker, who's the defendant here, stole the cell phone of Andy Ngo. It seems that no one is denying that the phone was taken, but what is in dispute is the reason the phone was taken, which is concerns about Andy was filming him on gym property where it's explicitly no filming other people, as well as Mr. Hacker had concerns that the footage would be used to generate animosity towards him and possible retaliatory actions, not inherently from Mr. No, but from his audience. That appears to be what the defense is laying out, or is building towards, and that this isn't a robbery so much as it's a self-defense.
Mr. Cogan was just introducing his law school associate, so here, let's go on the record.
The The state is gonna call James Wallace, Your Honor.
You can come up to the witness
Gonna say
stand.
standing, she'll swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Name is James Wallace, JamesWallace.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Where are you from?
Live in Vancouver, Washington. Well, Hawkinson, but Vancouver, generally speaking.
How long have you been here?
Pretty much my whole life. Born in Portland and then raised in Washougal and Vancouver.
How are you employed right now?
So I'm vice president of a small business out in Rainier, Oregon.
What do you do?
So we do volume photography. So we do a lot of school sports photography and serve like basically the southwest region of Southwest Washington. So.
Were you employed with 24 Hour Fitness before this?
Yes, I was.
And what time period did you work for them?
So I was hired there in 2008, I believe. I was there for about 12 years, from 2008 till 2020.
Which locations did you cover?
Pretty much everywhere. I was a general manager and then district manager trainee, so I covered anything in Vancouver or Portland.
And did you work for them in May of 2019?
Yes, I did.
And what was your position then?
I was a general manager.
At which gym?
The Hollywood location.
Okay. What did you do at the Hollywood for when you were a general manager?
Anything from staffing to, member situations, team member situations. I had a staff of about 50. So basically anything to do with those team members or members and helping with acquisition, help with retention, operated a, profit and loss statement.
Were you working there on May 7th of 2019?
I believe so, yes.
Do you remember an incident between two members where someone's phone was taken?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember who the people involved in that were?
I do.
Could you tell me their names if you know them?
I believe it was John Hacker and Andy Ngo.
Okay. Do you see Mr. Hacker in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
And could you just describe something he's wearing for the audio recording, please?
Blue shirt and it looks like a dark blue tie.
Thank you. So can you just walk me through what you remember about that?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, obviously. So what I remember is I being down at the front desk, and at that location specifically, the front desk area in the lobby is on the first floor. It's right when you first walk in, and just above you at the front desk is like a little overhang, almost like a foyer upstairs, which you can kind of hear and see a little bit about what's going on up there. And I just remember hearing an altercation between two of the members. And as my job as manager on duty, obviously I was going to go kind of touch base and see what was going on. And so I walked upstairs, vaguely remember John and Andy being kind of a verbal argument and Andy having his phone out and recording John. At that point in time, John had taken Andy's phone. I don't remember if I actually saw him take the phone, but by the time I got to John, I believe he had the phone. And then John started walking downstairs towards the locker room, which was also back on the first floor. I followed John back into the locker room. John gave me the phone willingly, and I went back and returned it to Andy.
Sorry, I'm just taking some notes.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm gonna go back through what you said and kind of talk about it a little bit. So you heard yelling. Do you remember what the yelling was?
I don't remember exactly, no.
When that all happened and finished, did you talk to police at any point?
I'm sure I did, but I don't recall.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. So do you remember who you heard yelling between the two?
I do not recall for sure.
Okay. If I showed you a report from an officer that you spoke to, would that maybe help refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so do me a favor and just take a look right here, these paragraphs, and then when you're done, just look up and I'm gonna ask you the question again.
Okay.
Okay, so, just grab that back for you. Thank you. Alright, so, do you remember, hearing either of them say anything specifically?
Yeah, I mean, after reading that, obviously it's been a handful of years since the situation, but after reading that, I do recall that John stated that he was I don't exactly know, but a fascist piece of shit, and then that's when the phone was taken, or just shortly
So
before.
when John stated who was he talking about?
Talking to about Andy.
Okay, and so then after he said that, that's when he took the phone?
Yes.
Do you remember trying to break that up at all?
I don't recall real vividly. I don't remember there being a lot of, physical contact. I just remember the phone getting taken and me kind of getting in between it.
Do you remember, did Mr. Hacker, stay there after he took the phone?
I did not real long. If he did kind of headed downstairs and mentioned that he was going to be destroying the phone and heading towards the locker room from what my statement said to the police.
And so he went down the stairs. Did he go straight into the locker room?
From what I recall, yes.
And do you remember talking to him?
Briefly, yeah. I remember going downstairs, talking to him, and getting the phone back. And
Do you
then
remember what you said or what he said?
I dealt with so many, heated escalations in my days at 24 Hour Fitness. I remember, I'd known John had been a member of our club and as had Andy for a long time. So I'm being there every day. You see their faces, and so I don't recall exactly. I just remember going down there and asking for the phone back and getting the phone back, but I don't remember exactly what was said.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay, I am going to show you, let me see where we're gonna look at. Okay. Could we connect, Miss Berry? I'm gonna show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 4. I'm showing you a still, and I wanna see if you can identify yourself in this. So it's on screen behind you, it's on screen in front of you too, if that's easier for you.
Yep.
Do you see yourself in that image?
Yeah, that's me on the right.
Okay.
Or on the top, I guess, technically.
I'm gonna play this and see if you hear yourself saying anything.
Sir, please, sir. Guys, you want to video me like you did everyone else? I will fucking break your phone.
Here, give me his phone. Hey.
Excuse me, sir. Please don't do that. I don't want to have to join to revoke the membership.
Yeah.
So, does that help you remember anything about the incident?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, obviously I can see it now. So that was me saying, sir, trying to stop John from, grabbing Andy's phone. And then as John was walking away, me stating, sir, please stop. I don't want to have to revoke your membership.
And why were you saying that?
Because, I understood that he took someone's property in the gym, walking away.
Is that something you guys revoke memberships for?
Yeah, we would revoke memberships for theft-related situations, yes.
Do you remember if you ended up revoking Mr. Hacker's membership?
I do not recall.
I don't have any other questions for this witness.
Okay, cross-examination.
Hi, Mr. Wallace.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for being here. So I know your memory is a little shaky, but Mr. Hacker actually returned the phone to you on the staircase, didn't he?
Again, I don't recall. I know it was I know we were headed downstairs, whether it was at the staircase or in the locker room, or there's at the bottom of the stairs, there's about 10 feet between the staircase and where the locker room entrance is. So
Okay.
There's another little secondary lobby there. So I guess it could have happened anywhere from the staircase to the entrance of the locker room or the locker room.
Okay, so it's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah. You said he gave you the phone willingly.
Yes.
You didn't have to overpower him.
I don't think I could, so no.
You didn't have to wrestle the phone from him.
I did not know.
You didn't have to scream at him to give you the phone.
No.
He described kind of what happened when in that moment where you actually got the phone back.
I mean,
That's
that
your
was
recollection.
yeah, to my recollection, I just remember continuous. I mean, I stay pretty calm in those matters. I mean, it's just like, hey, John, like, from what I recall, it would just be dialogue like what you saw there, where it's like, give me the phone. I don't want to revoke your membership. Can I please have the phone back? Stuff like that.
And then he gave it back.
Yes.
Okay. In the moment when he took the phone, did you see him angry,
I'd say so.
upset?
Yeah.
Did he seem calmer when you got the phone back from him?
I don't recall.
Okay. You mentioned there was some argument. Did it appear that both parties were yelling?
I believe that they were both upset, but I don't remember exactly whether they were yelling or not.
Did you hear any other statements Mr. Hacker made in the kind of lead up to this event?
No.
Okay. As the general manager, I'm sure you're familiar with 24 hours membership policies.
Yep.
Are you familiar with them at the time?
At the time, I was much more familiar than I am today.
That's fair.
I stopped working for 24 Hour Fitness a few years ago, so.
No problem. Just to the best of your recollection, were there any policies about recording?
I believe there was, but I don't know the exact policy.
Okay. No further questions.
Okay. Any redirect?
None.
All right, you may step down and may he be excused from his subpoena.
He can be excused by the state, Your Honor. I'm not sure if defense is planning on calling him or not. They listed him as a witness.
We are not going to, Your
All
Honor.
right, you're excused from your subpoena. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Burgess, who do you have next?
The state has no further witnesses until the one that's left, which I believe he's available at 1 p.m. So if it's possible to break and come back whenever, we'll be ready with our last witness. That should again be very brief, and then I think the state will be resting.
All right, why don't we let's plan on resuming at 1:10.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so sorry about that. So yeah, that was the morning. Actually, a lot happened. Maybe because skipping all the jury stuff that just sped up the trial. As we heard, their next witness isn't going to be available until the afternoon, so they're coming back just after 1 o'clock for it. Based on court filings that we saw before, where the defense wanted to get information from the state about their witnesses, every person that was on the list that was named has been on the stand already, with the exception of an Officer Lamont Johnson. My guess is he's the officer who responded and who would have done the police report. So yeah, it looks like their plan is to be back at 1:10 p.m. So we'll probably start, closer to 1:30, because these things always start late. Don't forget, when we go into the afternoon session, it will be a different link, but I'll make sure that it's sent out over Mastodon and Twitter, so that if you didn't already have it from when I sent it last night, you'll be able to see it and join in there. In the meantime, subscribe with the video here if you've got, if you want to help us out beyond that, share this information out. And, definitely if you're able to and you feel up to it, feel free to toss a couple bucks our way or whatever. Links are in the video description for that. In the meantime, have a good lunch. Take care of yourselves. We'll be back in the afternoon.